Man, this is Deion Dawkins, man, and you're listening to The Scoop on OurScoop.com. You already know.
What's up, everybody? Welcome back to The Scoop, the weekly podcast of OurScoop.com, the authority on Temple athletics. We're on to episode 38 of our 11th season. I'm your host, John DeCarlo, the editor of OurScoop.com, along with assistant editor Kyle Gauss and our trusted reporter, Ryan Mack. We've got a lot of stuff to get to. So much has happened since last week's episode. 4 more portal commitments are on the board. Deuce Drake, Cam Scott, Jordan Marsh, and now Sir Isaac Herron. Kyle just got that story up on the site. We've got a Temple football verbal commitment to talk about as well. The first one of the 2027 class is on the board. And Pleasantville High School defensive back, Takis Barnes. So we got a lot to talk about. We've got a lot
defensive back?
I guess really like a defense. He's defensive back, running back, all around athlete.
Yeah, I think he's a running back at Temple.
Yeah,
okay. They announced him as a running back.
Okay.
Announced commitment graphic.
Yeah, commitment graphic. Yeah. So we got a lot of stuff to get to. A lot of great mailbag questions as well to get to that are going to help us set the agenda for at the end of the show. So we appreciate those as well. The Scoop, as it always is brought to you by Greenspan and Greenspan Injury Lawyers. If you've been injured while on the road or the highway and the crash was someone else's fault, the insurance company is not going to be on your side. You need us, Temple Law Grads, who will fight hard to get the compensation that you deserve. We only get paid if we win, so in Pennsylvania or New York, call us today at 215-261-7359. That's 215-261-7359. And you can find them on the web at greenspans-law.com. That's Greenspans with an S, -law.com. Got a couple of things, notable things to celebrate, right? Kyle, Meg completed another Broad Street run.
Oh, yeah, she did. I think this is kind of like old hat at this point.
Yeah,
I think it's like her 10th or 12th or 15th or something.
And you were there to support her again.
You know, if anybody ever wants a meet cute with me, all you got to do is go to Maxie's the day of Broad Street Run around like 11 a.m.
That brought so much joy to Ryan, where he said, Kyle, are you at Maxie's right now? So you were looking at the team. You were looking at the team photo, trying to find...
Ryan, you told me where it was. I still couldn't find you.
I still can't see you.
Oh, hold up, John. At the end of the pod, I have the picture. I'll show it too. But no, like me and Colin, we were, he was in his room, I was in my room, and I saw it, and I just go to him. I'm like, is Kyle at Max's right now? We both looked at, we're like, yeah, there's no shot. He's nowhere out. Like that's where he's got to be. And
yeah,
we were
where
like,
else would that be? The National Archives.
Also, we were so confused because we saw the picture, but like the amount of times I've been there, I actually never knew where they hung up the pictures of the people that did the Maxi Challenge. I was like, oh, snap. They actually did.
It seems like it's inconsistent because like a couple of them are above the bar. This one was near like the entrance. Mm-hmm. I feel like this is where they find a thumbtack to hang up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, Meg is just basically a superstar with this stuff at this point.
Yeah, it's old hat to Meg at this point. Meg's brother did it. My brother did it. Ryan tried jumping on the Sixers bandwagon. I refused to let him.
Wait, what?
I said I'm rooting for this. Okay, the lesser of two evils, I'm rooting for the Sixers against the Knicks. Of the lesser of two evils, I'm rooting for the Sixers.
It's crazy. After my daughter logged into Twitter and went through and searched any time Ryan had ever mentioned Celtics on his Twitter account and liked every one.
I was in pain. I was in pain.
It's crazy. It's crazy she knew to do that.
I was just like, Kyle liked my one tweet when I was talking about the Celtics game. And then, oh, Kyle liked another tweet. Okay. Oh, he liked all like 10 of them. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Is it
Haley
Kyle
did,
doing
yes.
it, or is it Haley?
Haley did, yeah. Kids these days, very tech savvy.
Yeah. So a little bit of Maxie's synergy there. Wanted to wish a happy belated birthday to my wife Chelsea, who celebrated her birthday on April 30th.
Happy birthday.
Yeah.
Avid podcast listener.
Avid podcast listener. She still threatens every once in a while that she and Meg are going to create a competing podcast called Ruse Real Housewives of Al Scoop. So
yeah, we do numbers.
Might do some numbers. You know, every once in a while she likes throwing that out there. She always says she enjoys Kyle and Meg and their sense of humor. I'm like, yeah, if you want to start it, maybe we can collaborate. And she was like, no, we would not collaborate with you. We would
be a hostile takeover.
To be clear, we would not collaborate with you. So I had a wonderful weekend with her. Just wanted to wish her a happy birthday. And yeah, it's been a week. Ryan's Celtics have been eliminated.
We don't need
5.
We don't need to talk about that.
Well, it happened. It's over, but we appreciate having you on board. The Sixers need your help.
Although I guess technically it happened last week. The Sixers were never going to win game 1. They're very tired.
No.
They did the right thing by resting their starters like the entirety of the second half.
Still don't understand why they were asked to play 2 days later. I know that's become a popular talking point, but like
Dumb.
Just dumb. So
Adam Silver does something dumb, let me know.
Yeah.
Revolution.
All right, let's go chronologically here. As I said, since we last recorded with you guys, 4 more portal additions for your Temple men's basketball Owls. Jason Deuce Drake, goes by Deuce Drake. His signing was announced Thursday. Then South Carolina transfer Cam Scott's signing was announced on Monday. And then on Tuesday, Temple announced it had signed a player that pursued heavily in the portal last season, and Jordan Marsh, who spent this past season at USC. And then now the latest news. I know so many of you have been saying, when are they going to get bigs? When are they going to get bigs? We're going to talk about that a lot in this podcast. This is one, not the only big that they'll be bringing in, but they have brought in Louisiana Tech center Sir Isaac Herron. So the roster is getting built out now. So we've got a lot of stuff to talk about. So interesting fun fact. Marsh and Des White would have been teammates at George Mason for at least a year. Had Kim English not left for that Providence job. At the end of the day, it's kind of a whole lot of nothing, but it just goes to show you how there are little connections here and there. But, you know, we'll be asked about this in the mailbag as well. But let's kind of start chronologically as this news kind of like filtered out here. Let's start with Deuce Drake. So he comes from Indiana. Mm-hmm. Did not play at Indiana this past season. Had what I understand was a foot injury. Maybe could have come back at some point, but did I directly get this from him? No, but you know, this is, and we'll hope to talk to him at some point, but maybe he could have come back, but decided it was going to be best to sit out the rest of the season. But he had a good season 2 years ago at Drexel and parlayed that into landing in the Big Ten, 11.1 points, 3 rebounds, 3.1 assists per game at Drexel during that 24-25 season. And again, at least one Big Ten program thought he was good enough to play in the Big Ten. And what I think you have now is, and again, I want to kind of tip this over to you guys to talk about is, you know, I think this program, at this time last year, you started hearing like, oh, Aiden can handle the ball, and we have multiple guys that can handle the ball, and it doesn't take just one person to initiate the offense. But I think that things did suffer a little bit when you didn't have Jordan Mason on the court. You now have 2 guys now who are very capable ball handlers and proven ball handlers. So, Kyle, I'll start with you in terms of Deuce Drake. What do you think this addition does for him?
Yeah, I think the fact that, like you said, that Indiana, who has had some down years, but also is historically one of the better Big Ten programs, thought enough of a Drexel point guard to bring him in, and a year later, he hasn't gotten worse in a year. Like, he's the same player he was a year ago. I think at the very least, he's a guy that comes in and carves out like a Messiah Gilliard type role, where like maybe he's like the first guard off the bench, maybe he's 17 minutes a game, or maybe he's your true point guard. Maybe he beats out Jordan Marsh, and all of a sudden he's the starting point guard. He beat out Dallas Dillard and goes from there. I think they've added a fair amount of guards that, like you said, you'd feel comfortable like having running the offense, which last year I feel like you had to squint a little bit after Jordan Mason to kind of see like who would you feel comfortable running this offense. Like there was always this talk of, well, Aiden will be able to do it, or Messiah Gilliard will be able to do it, and like there was a clear drop off when it came to running the offense. I don't think there will be a drop off this year.
Ryan, what do you make of this?
I like it. Like Kyle said, there won't be as clear of a drop off with Dallas Dillard and with Deuce Drake. Like if one of them wasn't on the floor, with who's gonna handle the ball. Also, I like just like the plethora of people that they kind of brought in with their kind of guards, where you have Dallas Dillard and Des White, who like to shoot the 3 a lot.
Ryan, real quick, Ryan, how high do you think you can count? Like if I said, hey Ryan, you have to count. How high do you think you could count?
I'm wondering where he's going.
I don't know. What? Yeah.
You could count like 3 or 4, right?
Yeah.
So you wouldn't think that's like a plethora of something, right? Like that's
my apologies. My apologies.
This is like the damn PA announcer at Temple. There's a plethora of flags on the field. There's 2. There's 2 flags on the field.
My apologies.
Kyle, always teaching.
No,
always mentoring.
It's supposed to be like a high excessive volume. 3 or 4 is not that.
Now he's completely off his game. Now that threw him.
No,
Sorry, Ryan. Please
no,
resume.
no, you're so good. But yeah, and then you have like a player like Deuce Drake who can maybe, like I said, maybe be able to come off the bench and be a ball handler. Maybe he just starts right away. And then I know we're gonna go into a little bit later, but then you have someone like a Jordan Marsh who's a proven scorer when he was at UC Asheville, and maybe also someone that they lost in Darren Ford is someone that can get on the floor and get to the free throw line. He had 4 free throws per game at UNC Asheville 2 years ago. Obviously, that dropped because of like minutes dropping down at USC. That's something that they missed with Darian. He came in, he was averaging like 4 free throws at Arkansas State, and he had 6 this year, and he was averaging 6 this year. So that's something big that I think they're gonna get. Sorry, I kind of talked about all 4 of their guards a little bit, but that's kind of something that I like that kind of notice there.
No, it makes sense because it's going to be, and again, some people think this is a detriment. We'll get to this in the mailbag. It's like, where are the bigs? Where are the bigs? Are they going to be a guard heavy team? Yes, they're going to be a guard heavy team. But so let's stay on this position again. I'm not. We're not. This isn't going chronologically because you had a player in between. Obviously, there we will get to Cam Scott, a guy that was a former 4-star recruit. The hope here is that for Temple staff is that they can bring that potential out of him like they've done with Darian Ford and Gavin Griffiths, although they had a little bit more proven numbers in terms of stats before they got to Temple, Darian Ford more so. But let's talk about Jordan Marsh and staying on that point guard position because this is an interesting story. This is a player that, from what we've been told by multiple sources, the Temple felt pretty good about. I think they thought they were going to get him last season around this time, last offseason around this time. USC swoops in late and gets him. But this is a guy who, again, he's 5'11", but as Ryan said, had a really good season 2 years ago at UNC Asheville, 18.8 points per game. He was the Big South Conference's newcomer of the year. Now at USC this past season, he's coming off the bench, 7.3 points per game, 2.6 rebounds, 2.3 assists, but he shot 40%. And then nearly 40% from three. He had some fun moments for them this year. Had a really good game against Maryland, and then he hit this buzzer beater to help USC beat Troy in triple overtime back on November 20th. So a guy that can play, a guy that's a crafty scorer. Kyle, again, I'll tip this one back over to you. They circled around on him this time, and they got him. What does Jordan Marsh do for this team?
Yeah, I think he's a very good player.
Yeah.
I think if you had to make a lineup right now on May 6th, I think he's a starting point guard or starting 2 guard, depending on how you want to do it. I think he gets the rim and finishes at the rim, which is the hardest part of scoring at the rim. I think it's surprising, even in their conference tournament game against Washington, he kind of willed himself to 9 rebounds, despite being kind of generously listed at 5'11". I think he's a guy that offensively is a different type of piece than they've had in a while.
Yeah.
Like a smaller bug-like player that can get to the rim and finish at the rim and is honestly, this is a bit of a cliche, like fearless at the rim.
Mm-hmm.
I think is something that this team has lacked in the Adam Fisher era. And yeah, I think this is a very good get for them that, like you said, last year they kind of got to the 1-yard line and couldn't finish it. And to prove that there's no like bad blood in college basketball recruiting nowadays, a year later to be like, oh, there's still that relationship there. Like we kind of had a leg up here is encouraging. It proves that relationships still matter a little bit still when it comes to recruiting.
I know I keep tipping this over to the mailbag because we got a lot of mailbag questions about this, and we're thankful for them. But to just kind of say something now that I'm going to say again in the mailbag, I think that just because of the composition of the roster, again, I get that people want size. They're waiting for news of a couple of bigs. I get it. In 2026, we've been saying it before, we're basically covering pro sports without a collective bargaining agreement. I don't expect people to be well-versed on all these guys. We're doing our due diligence. Now, a guy like Marsh, we knew about, and I think people look at his numbers at USC and say, okay, he came off the bench. I don't think that a certain segment of the Temple fan base appreciates like how good this kid is. I'm not saying that he's going to be a first-team All-American, but I think this is definitely a straw that stirs the drink type of guy, like you said very well, like the type of player that they haven't had in a while. Yes, they've had proven scorers, like a guy like Darian Ford was, they didn't get to the tournament this year, unfortunately, but a guy that could get to the rim. They had a guy like Jamal Mashburn, who unfortunately got hurt. Marsh is just a guy who is, like you said, he's listed at 5'11". I don't know how much he weighs. might be like 160, but a guy that just plays well off of contact. If you look at the play that collectively that USC made on that buzzer beater, if you just see the way he goes after the ball and gets to the rim, he just does not care. And I think this is a guy that is really going to, like, again, I feel like I'm speaking in cliches here, but I think this is a really, really good pickup for them. And I've had a couple of friends text me and say, all right, well, I thought they were good on guards. Why do you take a kid like him? Because I think you've said it in conversations we've had, he's too good to pass up. And again, we're not trying to gaslight people and say, like, this guy has a lottery pick, but he's a very, very good college basketball player. I think this is the guy that you feel better about the roster with them adding him. And Ryan, you were making the point before, it's like here's another guy who's a very capable ball handler where there's not as much of a drop off now. And now, again, we'll see. Competition and the summer will determine who's going to start, but now you have a couple of capable ball handlers, but this guy can play on the ball, off the ball, allows him to do a lot of different things.
Yeah, too. And you also me and you both kind of talked about with like they had it like someone that was able to drive and like maybe like draw fouls down with like Jamal Bashburn Jr. and also with Darian Ford. Jordan Marsh also gives him like the same thing that we always kind of talked about. He's not afraid to get in contact, which is big, especially just at his size and his frame, but also at times where we had the last 2 years where say they're in like a tight game and they just need a bucket. And sometimes someone's just able to, like, maybe you're not going to get the shot, but you're able to drive, get that contact and just get a free throw. You're going to the line and those are easy buckets to just try to get. So having someone that has the confidence and the ability to just kind of get there, initiate the contact, and maybe even if you're not getting the layup, to go in, you're going to the free throw line to get some points.
And sorry, real quick to that point, this isn't like I know people are going to be like, oh, well, UNC Asheville, he did this, but once he got to the Big Ten, he did this. If I watched a video of him doing this at App State against Auburn as a true freshman, which if he's 160 now, he's probably 145 as a true freshman driving the lane. So, like, I think confidence is the last thing you're worried about when it comes to Jordan Marsh.
And like even like with his numbers, like at USC, like he didn't start and he had 10 less and he was averaging 10 less minutes per game there.
Right.
And it's still, and the numbers are still like are still pretty solid for his size at playing at the Big Ten and with the limited amount of minutes that he was getting.
Yeah, to that point, if he was a starting guard at USC, he wouldn't have been averaging 7 points. He would have, just based upon the role, have been like a 14, 15-point guy, game guy in the Big Ten.
Yeah. Well, you talk about getting to the line, to be fair. I mean, is he Lynn Greer at the foul line for Temple? No, he shot about 78%.
Which is both fine in college basketball.
Yeah, which is more than fine in college basketball. Sure, you'd love to see him like into the 80s, but still a more than likely dependable foul shooter there. So I think we're in agreement of a really nice ad for him there. Cam Scott's intriguing. And, again, a former 4-star recruit, plays sparingly his freshman year at South Carolina, enters the portal, stays in the portal for close to a month, decides he's going to come back, and then basically took like a developmental redshirt year. But this is a guy where, again, I think I would have to imagine, and maybe, we'll get the chance, hopefully at some point, once the roster is set, we'll hopefully get a chance to sit down with Adam Fisher and talk to him about the composition of the roster. But again, I think that, especially Darian Ford, but to a certain extent, Gavin Griffiths, I would imagine that Adam and his staff were like, hey, this is a place where, you can come here and grow and develop. And I mean, he said as much, Cam said this in his quote that was released by the program. Hey, everybody develops at a different pace, but look at what we've done for Gavin Griffiths. Look at what we've done for Darian Ford. These are a couple of, for whatever recruiting rankings are worth. And this guy was a consensus 4-star recruit, a highly, highly touted guy. There's a place for you here to grow and develop. So again, that the numbers aren't going to wow you, but he was recruited and brought in by an SEC program. So again, more potential here, but you can say what you want about the staff. 3 years have gone by. They have not been able to get to the NCAA tournament. It's fair criticism. Not only that, we've talked about it ad nauseum. They folded in February. That's all fair game, but they've done a solid job of developing guards and letting some of these guys flourish. So Rivals ranked him 40th nationally in the 2024 class, top player in the state, 2-time South Carolina Gatorade Player of the Year. So he's about 6'6", 175, 2.5 points per game, 1.3 rebounds per game, and a little bit more than 10 minutes per game as a freshman. Didn't play last year. His last game in a South Carolina uniform was fairly efficient. He had 8 points, 3 of 3 shooting, 2 of 2 from 3, 4 rebounds. That was in an SEC tournament loss to Arkansas. So, Kyle, how do you see him? Is he more just like a kind of like a small forward, a wing? What do you think? Again, a lot of this will be determined over the summer and in the fall, but to say he's an upside recruit maybe undersells him because he didn't come in as like this rough around the edges recruit. I mean, there's a
Right.
pedigree there. What do you think he does for the team this year?
Yeah, he's interesting to me because like I said, the pedigree's there. Like he originally committed to Texas before
Yeah,
going to South
yeah,
Carolina. Like he has had a lot of big offers coming out of high school. Obviously chose to stay home and be a Gamecock. I think shooting's a bit of a concern with him. Even when he was playing like the AAU circuit, like shooting was just not his forte. That's not a unique scenario. There's a lot of guys that just get by on athleticism in high school and AAU ball. I think he has pretty good size. I think he's a good rebounder for his size. I'll be curious if they're able to develop a shot with him, or if he just ends up being more of like a slasher from the wing position. He's definitely not Gavin Griffiths, like just like sit out there and then like dunk when you have your opportunity. I think he has the ability to kind of pass through the offense and get to and slash as well. I'll be very curious with him. I think it's just like a nothing but upside situation. I think Darren Ford played at Arkansas State, right? Like
yeah,
he had plenty of tape. They took his game to a completely different level when he got
yeah.
here. Gavin Griffiths played a bit, but didn't look that good at Rutgers and Nebraska. He looked good at the beginning against Rutgers, fell off. Nebraska didn't really get his footing. They established him into like a starter in this conference. I think they're just hoping that they can catch lightning in a bottle here. And if so, you can make the argument that the upside with him is higher than the upside with Ford and Griffiths. So like, I think it's a complete no lose situation.
And then let's move along here to talk about the newest portal edition. If you're listening to this, you know about this. Sir Isaac Herron from Louisiana Tech, a well-traveled big man here, but shot almost 60% from the field this past season. Again, the numbers aren't going to necessarily wow you. 4.6 points per game, 2.4 rebounds per game. But as Kyle pointed out, 5 double-digit scoring performances. We have to see how he grows and develops under this staff. Here's a guy, I don't know if he'll start. It's too soon to say, but depending on what kind of lineup they're going to put out there, if he's a big that's coming off the bench for you, take whatever expectations you had from Mokita and bump them up. This is a guy who is a capable big. We'll talk about this more in the mailbag before I tip this over to Kyle here. It depends on how they want to play their bigs. Are they expecting them more to be just like get in dunking position, defend, rebound, score around the rim? But this is a guy who has some proven production. What do you make of this one, Kyle?
It's wild that we consider him well traveled because in college basketball in 2026, he's really not. He spent 4 years at
Yeah.
Oral Roberts,
Yeah.
and then spent the last year at Louisiana Tech, and now he's only on his third school, which is
Yeah.
lower today. I think I posted this on our boards. His like per 40, which I know is like extrapolating a bit, but like he played in 27 games. He played 13 minutes a game. If you extrapolate that to playing like 40 minutes, he's a much better like finisher and actual scorer than like Babatunde Duradola or Mokita, obviously. Like this is a guy that can score the basketball at the D1 level. I think at 6'10", Louisiana Tech lists him at 235. I think that's just like a bigger frame than they're used to maybe coming off the bench. Like Mokita was taller, obviously, but he was fairly skinny. I think in an ideal world, you're probably expecting him to come off the bench and play 15, 17, 20 minutes a game and maybe get you 5-6 points a game. And yeah, I think that's kind of where he thrives. I think he's not the best rebounder. I don't think he's as much of like a blocking threat as Jemai as what they hoped Jemai felt would be when they got him. I think just scoring wise though, he's a pretty successful and efficient scorer from that 5 position.
We're going to talk about these 4 players a lot more in the mailbag. We want to kind of like parse this out and spread this out here because we have some more stuff to get to, but we're definitely going to have more conversation about these 4 portal additions in the mailbag. Let's talk briefly about Temple's first football class of 2027 verbal commitment to Keith Barnes. Kyle said really just like, maybe projects as a running back, all around athlete. I see, like, if you look at the profile of Takis Barnes, it's the type of early commitment that Temple sometimes does well with. They've talked at length about getting back to recruiting their footprint. They have gotten so many good players out of the state of New Jersey. You hear Casey Keeler talk about New Jersey a lot, particularly South Jersey. So they had a couple of connections that really helped them out here. The first one, the most obvious one, being that Malachi Timberlake, their current assistant director of recruiting, was Pleasantville's head coach for 3 seasons before coming over to join Temple staff. Once he leaves to come to Temple, Elijah Glover, former FCS player at Villanova, a pretty good player at Nova, takes over. And so they had a clear connection there. He had some FCS offers. Temple's his first FBS offer. He had tweeted that he was going to be coming in for an official visit. And this is, again, we'll see how this goes. But this profile, this type of player is typically the one that Temple kind of does well with. Some FCS programs believed in him. We feel good enough to be his first FBS offer. We're going to get a commitment out of this guy. And then maybe the commitment holds. Maybe you're holding on for dear life if he goes out and puts some, if he camps really well and he goes out and has 3 or 4 really good games next August and September in South Jersey. Again, Pleasantville's a school that plays, and I believe it's called the West Jersey Football League. Used to be the Cape Atlantic League. I should know this, but Pleasantville's out closer to the shore. And his lead recruiter was Andrew Pierce, former Cumberland Regional High School standout, played at Delaware, played for Casey Keeler. So they had a couple of good things working for him here. Kyle, what do you think of this? Again, one of many recruits we'll be talking about, but it kind of feels like one that kind of just seeing the profile of this type of player kind of makes sense for them.
Yeah, especially this early on in the cycle. This isn't necessarily like it's I would say February, but February's not really a signing day anymore. It's not like this is December where it's like, oh, we're kind of just rolling the dice on a guy. This is a guy that I think is ascending a bit. I think as far as a running back goes, he's probably more of like an Amir Morrow where he's like dynamic, and you're probably not going to see him get 400 carries like RJ Blunt got, right? Like this is the counting stats probably won't wow you as much as like the dynamic like kick returns, and you give him 8 carries and all of a sudden he has 80 yards, this type situations. But yeah, I would agree with everything else you said, where it's just regionally it makes sense. Connection wise, it makes sense. Obviously, you could argue nobody knows him better than Malachi Timberlake. I would say that this is just like a pretty prototypical Temple get at this point in the cycle.
Defensively, this past season, 22 tackles and 2 interceptions. As a sophomore, he had a 95-yard kickoff return for a touchdown that Elijah Glover had told me about that. Started to break out a little bit more this season, 382 yards and 7 touchdowns. Had a really good game against, they blew out Oak Crest last October, and then had a good game against a good Delsey team in the first round of the Group 3 playoffs. So a good start to their class, good sign that a guy that said he was coming in for his official visit and a guy that they get to get some momentum going in South Jersey. And I think this program, as you've seen, once they got a full recruiting cycle under their belt, they want to get to the summer with their high school class mostly set and say, okay, now we know what we're bringing in. We know who we need to monitor, keep committed, and then we can focus on, the portal commits.
Why does Pleasantville play in the West?
It's just really, again, I if I were still somehow working at the Vineland Daily Journal, I'll be able to better explain this.
They're going up against Haddonfield, which that makes sense. That's West.
Yeah, more expansive. It's just how they've redone the Cape. I should know this. The Cape Atlantic League still exists for basketball. For football, they created the West Jersey, whatever it is, the West Jersey
Continental.
It is. It's an interesting area to cover. There's so many good football players in South Jersey. Every state likes to claim its own identity, Western PA, Southeastern PA, but Temple's done well. Again, you can pick out a number of players like a Rockwell Armstead out of Millville, but they've done well, and not just in South Jersey, closer to the city, but in that area that I used to cover down there. There are a lot of really good players at the shore who are, he's a pretty good basketball player too. They get guys that are good in track. So I have yet to meet Tykees Barnes, but the type of player that he is, it just that this is the type of commitment that makes sense for them. Mike Livingston, who's been doing some work for us, and this is what his head coach Elijah Glover told Mike in part. And again, if you're an Owl Scoop subscriber, you can get access to that full story there. And at some point, I think Mike's going to be catching up with Tykees Barnes himself. So if and when he does, we'll have that story up on the site as well. But his coach Elijah Glover said, I think Tykees can contribute in so many ways at the next level, running the football, catching passes out of the backfield, creating mismatches against linebackers, and on special teams as well. I wouldn't be surprised to see him make an impact early, whether that's making tackles or even blocking a kick. Beyond that, he'll bring value as a leader in the locker room who handles his business the right way. So first commit on the board for Temple, more to come. So again, as we have more football recruiting news to bring to you guys, we will do so. We mentioned on last week's show that the Temple women's lacrosse team was playing in the conference tournament down in Nashville. They ended up losing 13-7. Kelly Sato had 3 goals in the loss, but not enough. Temple finishes the season at 12-5. So I think, unless I'm missing something, right, Kyle, it's been 10 years since a Temple team has won a conference championship. That was football at Navy in 2016 when they dominated a pretty good Navy team.
Look, fencing wins conference championship every year.
Yeah. Other than fencing.
Yeah, I think it's been a decade. That sounds right. The expectation is championships.
Yeah. I mean, for the most part, a pretty good bounce back season for Bonnie Rosen and her team. But
I don't think they disappointed this year whatsoever. They got off to a very hot start. I think they even kind of finished strong to like get into the conference tournament. They just had a little bit of a lull in the middle, and they ran up against a very good South Florida team.
All right, we're going to hop into the mailbag here as we do each week. Before we answer your mailbag questions, you'll hear a weekly tip from our friend Mike Greenspan of Greenspan and Greenspan Injury Lawyers. If you need an injury lawyer, he's the best one you could hope to have, but Mike wants to keep you safe on the roads and in life and always has a weekly tip to pass along. So here is his weekly tip, and then we have several mailbag questions to get to.
Don't forget about those toll booths if you're driving on the Garden State Parkway late at night. You see, people driving late at night tend to go fast, very fast. And on a parkway like the Garden State, a toll booth can come around when you least expect it. And what happened? There was a terrible crash at the toll booth involving people who were driving at high speed. So how do we protect ourselves? And the answer is, when you're driving, especially by yourself late at night, you have to be extra alert. Keep a lookout and be aware that people who drive quickly like that will get into trouble, and that way you can take steps and have time to avoid it.
All right, several questions to get to here. Most of these are from screen names on the message board. Temple fan Al starts us off. Is this shaping up to be the most talented backcourt in the Adam Fisher era? So I kind of feel like this is like the hope springs eternal thing where fan bases go up and down. They're miserable. Again, I wouldn't expect anybody to be happy about the way that this most recent season ended. But then now more than ever, we are covering programs that are just reloading. On paper, looks like they've brought in some pretty good guards. We will couch this by saying they haven't played a game here yet, but what do you think, Kyle? Does this have the potential to be the most talented backcourt of the Adam Fisher era in the past 3 seasons? Is that too much, or do you think that's fair?
It's hard to judge this because you're basing like projections and what you think they might develop into against like hindsight and like exactly what those guys were when they were at Temple. But they're, for as cruddy as their after Temple careers went, 2 years ago they had Jamal Mashburn Jr., Quante Berry, and Zion Stanford in the same backcourt. Like, I get that those guys like Quante Berry and Zion Stanford did not have the years last year they went to have, and they've since had to go down a level. Those are guys that, I know Memphis is the same conference. Those are guys that went up a level after they left Temple to go to Villanova and go to Memphis. And you had Jamal Mashburn Jr., who's arguably like the best pure scorer Temple's had in the last like 15 years. So it's hard for me to put it above that. And even if you go a year before that, it's like, well, you had Fabe, you had Jordan Riley, who later on went on to be like the number 4 scorer in the nation. So I get it. I think there's definitely pieces there, but I would be hesitant to put that title on them quite yet.
Yeah, I think it has a chance to maybe be the deepest one.
That's the thing. We had the same conversation last year, and then all of a sudden it's CJ Hines ineligible. AJ Smith shuts it down. If they ever just get a year where they don't have the monkey claw just like curl up and something happened to them, then we can judge off of that.
Yeah, so provided that nobody gets an injury and decides I'm done.
Which, in fairness, if this 5-for-5 passing happens, that shouldn't be a thing anymore because it doesn't matter if you played a minute or if you played 32 games. So there's no benefit to like after 9 games deciding not to come back from an injury.
But if you're going down the line here, Gavin Griffiths probably going to start. Cam Wallace probably not going to start, but maybe he makes a bit of a jump from his freshman year to his sophomore year. Derek Morton Rivera, very talented player coming out of Father Judge. Wouldn't expect him to start, but I think he's maybe not quite the same player as Cam Wallace, but I think he's a little bit better positioned to maybe give you something coming out than Cam Wallace did. Then you got Deuce Drake, you got Dallas Dillard, who we've obviously talked about in previous podcasts, but a D2 All-American at IUP, and then Des White, a 6'2" guard that is a proven 3-point shooter coming out of Oregon State. And so Cam Scott, maybe again, more of a wing. It's 6'6", 175 pounds. But yeah, so I hate to sound snarky, provided no one is caught up in a gambling scandal that we don't know about, and provided no one gets hurt, I think it has a chance to be a deep backcourt where you have guys you can depend upon. So
Temple's just one gambling scandal away from getting like their punch card filled and they get a free ice cream. So you never know. Maybe they just complete the set.
what do you think, Ryan? Deepest, most talented? Any bold claims you want to make here? Or are you just going to move us along?
I'll say it's the deepest. I won't go that's the most talented just because of players that they've had in the past. Talked about Quante, Mash, Zion, even a couple of my freshman year, Damian Dunn.
Well, that's not the Adam Fisher.
That's not.
Oh my God.
Yeah, it's not their deepest backcourt of all time for sure.
Yeah.
Back in '88, they had a player named Mark Macon.
Oh my God, I'm so sorry. Yeah.
See, Howard just talking. Berkshire Owl asks us, any chance that Mo Keita returns?
No.
Doubt it. He's in the portal, hasn't signed with anybody yet. I think the only way Mo Keita would return is if they've got 12 players. They don't like anything they see out there. Mo Keita doesn't like anything he sees out there. And it would basically have to be like, this is the number we gave you.
Right.
The number we're bringing you back at. Would it shock me if that happened? No, I don't think it's likely. What do you think of this, Kyle?
Yeah, I mean, I haven't been the last couple of weeks of podcasts, but I don't know how much you guys talked about it. If Mo Keita entered the portal for strictly basketball reasons, then somebody's giving him bad advice.
Yeah.
So, like, I think if you brought him back, it wouldn't be fully for basketball reasons. It would be for just, like, you're a good locker room guy, and maybe you can give us 5 minutes a game.
Yeah. Temple Fan 55 asks us, does the staff have more resources than previously believed?
I haven't gotten like a definitive. I don't think that's what, if you could wave a wand and change one thing about college basketball, you wish you could get just like, this has to be publicly accessible information and someone gives you this. My impression is that Temple is still behind compared to its conference peers. However, they got a bigger increase this year than maybe they expected 6 weeks ago, is my gut like impression on this.
On Twitter, Howard Herman chimed in. Howard's a sports columnist at the Berkshire Eagle up in Massachusetts. He's a Temple grad. He's a hell of a nice guy. I get to see him every once in a while. We saw him at the beginning of last season. Saw him when he's come down to Philly. I had to, Howard, if you're listening, and hopefully you are, I had to look this up. Did not get the reference at first. His question was, with Jordan Marsh signed up as JCPenney next? I had no idea that there was a department store chain up in Massachusetts called Jordan Marsh, but I guess there is. Yeah. Who doesn't like a good maybe
Boscov's?
Yeah. Boscov. Maybe like there's a Boscov. Maybe there's an undiscovered big out there named Strawbridge Clothier. Maybe I don't know. I'm
what's the Wanamaker?
John, yeah, a dynamic wing named John Wanamaker. That would be great. I mean, then we have Ed Foley hopping on the pod and saying, "Hey,
you know what other movie they filmed there?
You know what film? You know what movie?
I've told you, I've taken that joke and like told random people that.
Yeah,
like I've just straight stolen that joke.
Just that memory of Ed sitting around that old Getty mic. You know what movie they filmed there? Mannequin. You know what other movie they filmed there? Mannequin 2. And he was just so happy, just so happy. Ryan, you would have gotten along well with Ed Foley. Ed Foley is still alive. I make him sound like he's dead, but I don't know. Yeah,
he's the director of high school relations for Nebraska.
Yes. Yeah, I love Ed. So, the Hick, another screen name, another longtime listener. Kudos to the coaches in the department, and this is what we were talking about before. But bigs. Did I mention I was wondering about players of size? Biggies, not smalls. Biggie. Yes, I get that. A couple things here. It all depends, and again, hopefully we'll get Adam Fisher to talk about how they envision using their bigs. So again, we've talked about Sir Isaac Herron. You were looking for an upgrade over Mo Keita. You have it. Like Kyle said, if you extrapolate out his numbers over a longer time on the court, I mean, not a bad pickup for them. There are two things at play here. And the biggest one is budget. Kudos to a program like Charlotte that brought in a guy like Anton Bonk. They developed him. Now he might end up becoming an NBA player. We'll see. I mean, he certainly dominated the living hell out of Temple when they played, but I'm not saying that there aren't bigs out there to be found who can be developed, but I think a lot of people look at box scores, they look at stats and say, well, this place got this kid. how come Temple can't get this? And we don't know unless we're talking to the agents and the players. But if you want difference making bigs, these are the guys that are going for $1 million, $2 million, big money. That's just not there. So time will tell if Adam Fisher and his staff have built this roster the right way. If they go out and they lose a critical game in March because they just got abused in the paint, I'm sure we're going to hear, wow, Jordan Marsh had 9 rebounds in this game, but you can't rely on a 5'11" kid to get this. I get that, but I think it's just we're going to have to hear the staff talk about what they had available to them if they talk about it and how they plan to use their bigs. If they look at their bigs as like we need them to rebound, play defense, and be in that putback dunk position, we'll see. But the budget's not really there for them, and be curious to hear about how they view their bigs. But how do you look at this, Kyle? Because again, I get it. It's all over social media. When are they going to get a big?
That's the stuff that frustrates me.
Yeah.
Is that like I feel like people that are like paying attention to recruiting, so you would think they maybe have like a better idea how it works, are the same people that are commenting on these posts like a young guard. I guess we're going to roll out a 6-guard or 5-guard lineup. Like they're going to get bigs at some point. Like they are also aware they need bigs. This is, I guess last year maybe they were shielded from a little bit because like their first transfer commit was Jemai Feld, so you at least had like, well, they've gotten somebody, and it took it to their 6th or 7th commit this time to get Isaac Herron. I think they're fully aware that they need more bigs. It wouldn't surprise me if they add 2 more bigs to this lineup, to this roster. But like to your point, I hope nobody thinks it's going to be a guy that averaged 16 and 10 last year.
Yeah,
it's not. It's going to have to either be. You have 2 paths on this. You either do, you spend 7 figures and you go get something like that, and then you try to like piece together the rest of the roster based upon scraps, or you trust your scouting. You hope you can find somebody that maybe either didn't play, or was successful at a lower level, and you think you can project up and play at this level. But I think for better or for worse, this team runs its offense through its guards, and they're just trying to piece it together down low. Otherwise,
yeah. Couple more to get to. Got a few minutes here before we close things out. Late one on the football board from Sunny Al. Takis Barnes is a good start to the 2027 class. I'm curious to know if this was a surprise to the staff, considering his official was set for June 12th. Can we expect any more commitments in the next few days before official start in June? I think that to answer your second question first, I wouldn't be shocked if we see a couple more verbal commitments before official start in June. Was it a surprise? I'd be shocked if it was. Again, to be clear, we cannot talk to coaches. If I literally wanted to ask Casey Keeler or Clayton Barnes, was it a surprise that you got a verbal commitment from Takis Barnes? We cannot ask him that question on the record until he signs, his scholarship letter. His national, we technically don't have letters of intent anymore, but I'd be shocked given the connections that we talked about before. Pleasantville's former coach is on the staff, and they just have ties there with Malachi Timberlake. So I doubt it was a surprise. This is the type of thing, in a perfect world, if they get 3 or 4 or 5 verbals and then you get them on campus and they're already committed. They had a lot of luck last year where they built up a community of like, hey, I'm committed, you're next. That type of momentum. So I would seriously doubt it was a surprise to them. A few more to get to here before we close things out. Fig1, screen name from the basketball board, asks us, thus far, would you say our portal additions are better or worse or about the same as last year's roster? And are we ahead of where we were at the same point last year with the roster? It's a good question. It's an interesting question. It's hard to say if they're better or worse, about the same, because if AJ Smith remained healthy and wanted to finish out his season with Temple, and he could have been the perimeter defender that you were hoping he was going to be, you saw a small sample size of what he could do. If CJ Hines was able to play, we're probably having a different conversation about the team. I'm not saying that CJ Hines automatically takes him to a conference championship in the tournament, but I like and I don't know if this is where you fall on this as well, Ryan. I like the on paper depth of this roster, particularly the guards. If Adam Fisher, and again, I know I keep saying this, we'll eventually get him on the pod here. We'll ask him to go up and down the roster. But I think that they've been realistic about like, okay, what can we get in terms of front court help? Where are we going to be priced out? This is really like a wave of free agency. Mm-hmm. The first round of it is, I don't want to say overinflated numbers because some of these guys get their numbers and I should say their agents really get their numbers. And I hate to be snarky about agents, but some of them are good and some of them are literally just trying to get the biggest commission they can. Even apart from Temple, guys that are just landing at the wrong spot because the agents, some of whom are experienced and some of whom are not, are just saying, you need to be here, you need to be here. But all that is to say, I think that this staff has had to look at it and say, okay, here's our number. What can we realistically do to build the best roster we can? Do we still want to be able to push the pace and shoot threes? Maybe we don't want our guards playing 35, 36, 37 minutes a game. So if that was their approach, I think they've done well there. And I would maybe say maybe they are better off than they were at this time last year. What do you make of this? How would you answer this question?
I think maybe at this point they were last year. I think they're, like you said, they're just a little bit deeper at, like, at that guard level. It is a little bit just kind of hard to say if they are better because this is around the same time, literally like a year ago to the day that they got there in Ford. I think it was like the fifth, or I think it was like the fifth or sixth,
Mm-hmm.
or like the seventh, something around this time. But I just feel like for me, from the guard kind of a perspective, I think it's a little bit deeper. What I also like to, with the two wings, what they got with Babakor and with Cam. I do like last year there weren't many players that had extra years of eligibility after this. It was Gavin and Jemai that had extra years of eligibility. I like that they were able to get two sophomores that had extra years that they can maybe like develop. Babakor is someone from UTSA that we've seen. We call him one of the most ascending talents in the American Conference, and he has been. If he's able to stay for 2 years, he can develop. Same with Cam. You don't go to South Carolina just because he has talent. Maybe he can develop here for a couple years. I like that kind of aspect. That's not just like seniors only going to be here for a year and then we're in the same boat next year. Even though that's always going to be the case. You're always going to retool most of your roster in the American Conference. But I do kind of like that aspect of it.
We've got two more to finish us out here. Sonny Al bounces back with a basketball question. Temple's transfer class is currently ranked near the bottom of the American, but with the minimal resources the staff has, what letter grade would you give them up to this point? Looking at the message board here, Temple fan 55, who had submitted a question in the past, it chimed down on the message board and said, I wouldn't put too much stock into the rankings right now as they don't rate every transfer. That's good context. According to them, UTSA had the third best class, and Wichita State had the 10th best last season. So, good answer to that question. I mean, they have Dallas Dillard as a 4-star portal recruit. So, rankings can be kind of, there's something called the uses and gratifications theory in comm theory where it's like you gravitate toward content that makes you feel good. So, who doesn't feel good about good rankings? But I don't look at the rankings as much anymore. I wouldn't be so concerned about that. I'd look more at like experience and fit, projection, all that stuff. In terms of what letter grade I would give them up to this point, um, my initial gut reaction, I give them a B plus. I like what
Mhm.
they've done. I know I keep saying this. I'm not trying to sensationalize this. Jordan Marsh is a really nice get for that. I really, really think that the Temple fans are going to like him. I think they're really going to like Dallas Dillard, a guy that I've had the chance to talk to for a good half hour. I think Des White, a guy that can hit some threes. I like their makeup. I like the composition of that piece of the roster. We'll hope to talk to every single one of these new players and get them on the pod for you guys. But the Jordan Marsh pickup is one that moves the needle for me. I would give him a B plus right now because I just said, a few minutes ago, they're not going to get like a $5 million big, but I think you'd need to see another front court player that makes sense for you, where you could say, okay, I feel like this roster really is just about fleshed out. I think, barring any major unforeseen circumstances, I think we're going to be talking about another big by the time we record next week. I think maybe the staff looks at another like high upside guy, whether that's a high school guy, a JUCO guy. Is the staff opposed to signing guys to like a 2-year rev share deal when you say, hey, we can develop you for a year, you're ready to take off in year 2? I'd like to see one or two more bigs on the roster just so you have that availability. So it's still incomplete. It's a lot more complete than it was last week or the week before. But I think based on what they've been able to do with the guards, some of the programs they have out recruited. I mean, they out recruited Washington. As I understand it, they out recruited Washington down the stretch to get Jordan Marsh and a lot of higher end A10 programs. They out recruited Penn State to get Dallas Dillard. So they're in the right talent pool there, I think, with the budget that they have. So I'd give them a B plus for whatever that's worth. What would you give them?
I would give them like a B plus, honestly. Kind of like hodgepodge of everyone that they kind of have. I feel like they all kind of just like bounce off and feel like this team really messes with each other. Where it's like this way, Dallas Dillard were proving that they can shoot, be able to shoot threes, or Dallas Dillard being able to like run the point, or Deuce Drake being able to run the point. We talked about Cam and Babacor, these two wings that can kind of like grow and develop here. And also then we have Jordan Marsh who can come in, maybe be a point guard, but also someone that can be your main scorer. I think everyone here on this team kind of meshes well together. And also you talk about just who they had to out-recruit and the talent pool that they're in. It's Jordan Marsh, someone that they got out-recruited by USC, but someone that they were really, really high on last year, being able to come back, and bring him back in here. So I do like the group of players that they brought in.
I get it. Every year to kind of like put a bow on this, every year fans say, oh, I hate the way the season ended. Justifiable. And then the new players come in, they say, oh, they're reeling me back in. They're reeling me back in. So I've heard from just whether it's on our message boards or on like DMs on Twitter or just friends who text me, what do you make of this? The short answer is we don't know yet. And I think a lot of these additions make sense. But of course, they have to go out and prove it. They have to prove that they can play much, much better basketball in February. And is a guy like a Jordan Marsh going to make the difference there? Is a guy like a Dallas Dillard going to make a difference there? Do you look at an addition, in next February? Are we talking about a guy like Sir Isaac Herron and say, hey, he was able to give them 8 points and 6 boards in this game, and they weren't overmatched in the paint, and he was the difference. As a guy like Cam Scott hitting his stride in February or March, and you see, wow, there are some traits to that guy. As a guy like Deuce Drake giving you quality minutes off the bench, or is he playing alongside Jordan Marsh, and you say, wow, another capable ball handler where like oppressed it and foiled this team. All possibilities, all remain to be seen, but doing some educated speculation about it and answering these mailbag questions. It's a lot of fun. We appreciate them. So that's going to do it for this week. We will obviously have a lot more for you next week. Might have another portal commitment to talk about on the basketball front. We'll keep you updated. Again, if you're an OwlScoop subscriber, as we get interviews with these guys, we're going to have them on the site, but subscribers are going to get first crack at them. So appreciate all the mailbag questions. Ryan, thanks for being with us.
Of course.
Kyle, thanks for being with us. And we will talk to you guys next week.